Hello and welcome everybody to the 20th episode of our UBE Friday afternoon chill out lounge. Well, today it's the 20th episode, so we have at least one reason to celebrate, and later on I will tell you we have another reason to celebrate, but that's a secret. I will only disclose at the very end. So, guys, stay tuned for some revelations later on. Today we are unfortunately completely over, not we're not over lawyered, we're over professored because it's not only me today or Sven interviewing a distinguished guest. No, today we thought let's make this podcast, make this live stream about us. Uh, let's let's just review what we have done in the last half year in times when Corona and digitalization rose to new heights and we were in the midst of it. So today I have Sven with me, and we just want to chill, hang out, and talk about things. Isn't it like this, Sven? Hi, how are you?
Oh, I'm fine. Yes, I hope you're fine as well. Yeah.
I am.
No, today's idea is, of course, to have a flashback for the last 20 editions, of course. Since we discussed a lot of interesting topics, since we had a lot of extremely interesting guests, not only professors, of course, and we touched a lot of topics which are, of course, extremely relevant. And at the beginning, it was at least my perception. At the beginning, we had a lot of questions, a lot of uncertainty, which we had to deal with. For example, talking about trainings. Will there be any trainings during Corona? Will there be any teaching at the university during Corona? But now, 20 editions later, I think it's more relaxed, isn't it?
Oh, we do have answers, Sven. That's absolutely true. I remember when we were sitting together in March and the first lockdown happened, and we had just returned from our little UBE Academy hideout, and we thought, okay, is this the end of it, or is this just a short run phenomenon? And to be honest, in the beginning, we all thought, okay, this is something that will impact our training business, our university teaching for a couple of months, maybe until summer, and then we go back to normal. So everything was in sort of a make up provisional state. You didn't have your home office properly decorated because you were expecting soon to be back on the road again. You hadn't canceled your Gold Star membership with Deutsche Bahn and Deutsche Lufthansa because you were expecting soon to be flying again. Now, half a year later, we learned that this is not the case. So, what has happened in the world of universities and training? It is digital, full stop. And I see at this point in time very little signals that this will return to the status quo ante in the foreseeable future. There are many reasons for it, probably, and we're going to talk about this later on, but I think we are where we are, and this is going to stay for a while. Don't you agree, Sven?
At least some of these phenomena definitely seem to be very sustainable. Yeah, I remember at the beginning of the Corona crisis, we even booked hotels for the next seminars. All of them had to be canceled, and which is a sad story for the hotels, of course, and for me as well. We both love to travel, but this simply doesn't take place. Yeah, and the university, that's extremely interesting. What we saw is things which were considered as completely impossible just 8 months ago are now pretty normal. And that's maybe not all good, but in many senses, a very positive development, of course, since we are now practicing what we forecasted years ago. Yeah, it's a very interesting situation. Yeah.
The question, but Sven, question for you is: our listeners are typically no university students, but people who later on employ university graduates, so people in the business side. Are we heading for a lost generation? Will we see worse doctors, worse engineers, worse marketing specialists, if there's such a thing? What's your take?
Oh, I think that's no, it's maybe even the opposite of a lost generation, but this is something which we have to carefully observe. I think those who manage to get their education during these times are really the tough guys. They are fit for future, definitely. Those who failed to get this, okay, well, this was like a big assessment center for the companies. So I think many of our students, those which we regularly, frequently see in our lessons, they prove to be, yeah, sustainable even in difficult environments. So that is high employability. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting because my daughter, who has just started university, she said, "Well, Daddy, you're not you're wrong here. Would you board a plane where the pilot openly discloses to you that he received all of his training online on YouTube?"
Well,
And my answer was probably no.
it might not be true for every profession, definitely. Maybe a doctor should not learn to do a surgery of a heart on a screen. Yeah, I think this person should be trained in a classroom. Yeah, in the hospital, definitely. Same is true for pilots, and of course for many of the technical subjects as well. You cannot learn theoretically how to weld, for example. That is something which can be prepared theoretically, and of course, you have to have additional theoretical education on that topic. But at the end of the day, you need 1,000 hours of welding until you are able to weld something. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so this is probably the message to universities around the world, especially from those who later on need to employ graduates. Guys, open your labs. You know, you can teach
Yeah.
economics virtually no problem. I've been doing this for the last half year, and there was probably uh, the quality remained equally bad or good or whatever. But you need to open the labs. You need students to have these hands-on technical experiences. Otherwise, I think we're heading for trouble. Okay, so it depends, and every course and every
This
student
depends on the
program is.
subject. Maybe I can add something because that's maybe an interesting aspect also for the trainings. Of course, beside these technical abilities, beside the theoretical things which we indeed can teach online, we have another aspect which is more below the line. It's the hidden agenda of any education. That is what we call the social qualification, social intelligence, or whatever, building up networks, for example. This is definitely something which does not take place that much online. So this is something we need the classrooms. And if you think about the big MBAE programs in the world, those expensive programs where you spend the hell of money, it is not that they can teach better than we do. Of course not. There are not better teachers than we are. But their big thing is that many of their students are already in top positions in the economy worldwide. So when you pass these programs, then you will build up a network of executives around the world. And this is something which you cannot do online, definitely.
Yeah, as famous English novelist John le Carré once put it, 90% of decisions in companies are taken by committees that officially don't exist. And this is exactly the idea of networking and being in the bar just one beer longer. And how can students learn this? But let's move on. Let's
Yeah.
move on to what another prediction or let's say discussion we had back in April was. Which industries will benefit and which industry will not benefit from the situation we're currently in. Remember, back then we thought it was just a transitionary short run phenomenon. Now we decided that we're in for the long haul. So what's your take on it?
Well, first of all, of course, That is not really surprising. The digitalization industry is, of course, top of the pop. That's really, they get benefits from everywhere. Who knew Zoom just 1 year ago? And it's now one of the top companies, and everyone wants to work for them. And I don't know if they earn money, but at least their shares are extremely expensive, became extremely expensive in the meantime. And what we can do is, thanks to Dell, they have their biannual digitalization study, and they just this week published their recent results. So what we see is all over companies are jumping in and are investing in digital products, concepts, whatsoever. So this industry can be considered definitely as the big winner of the Corona crisis. Yeah.
What else is there? You probably read this Dell study already. It's hot off the press. But so what does it say? What is there anything in it for us that's interesting for us?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, that's some of the ideas we had 6 months ago were, let's say, confirmed. The number of companies forcing their digitalization projects is tremendously increasing. 80% of the companies, and they did a study in 18 countries, 80% of the companies they talked to claimed that at least the majority of their projects are forced during Corona crisis and because of Corona crisis. And the number of companies which are more waiting what will happen with digitalization, and we're more on the on the waiting list for future projects, decreased from 9% just 2 years ago to now 3%. That's, of course, everybody learned, obviously, beside these 3%, everybody learned it's time to digitalize. Beside any corona and any health issues, it is time to invest in digitalization, and that's what the Dell study shows. But at the same time, and this was to some extent surprising for me, at the same time, Corona's also stopping digitalization in some meanings. Then because many companies also now fear about the future. The budget had to be cut, and some companies don't know if they even exist in 2 months and 12 months time. So that is something which slows in some areas the digitalization process as well. And also, to some extent, not surprising, what they still found out that one of the main hurdles for any digitalization project is the qualification of the employees. Not necessarily the CEOs, the C-level employees, but of course the workers, the people in all the hierarchies. Often they don't know what these stuff is good for, and that stops any digitalization projects. Where people know what this is, there we can observe that even home offices, beside home offices, also digitalization projects concerning, for example, the build up of digital business models and digitalized
Digital,
digital
it's as difficult.
communication with customers is improving and spreading up.
Yeah. Okay. So probably my job is to talk about the bad news. I mean, I thought I found this Dell study really interesting because it has some counterintuitive um, learnings. However, we have quite some intuitive learnings that we had expected. Who's losing out? And back then, we were expecting that the stationary retail stores are going to take a hit, and this is definitely happening. So if you run your little boutique and you don't have a following that is also online active, you are probably in severe difficulties, and you're also into uh, heavy waters when you think about commercial and industry property development. It is from what we have learned from our customers over the last half year is how dramatically they have decided to reduce office space. And the only reason why this hasn't materialized yet is because often they have long-term leasing arrangements, 5 years, 10 years, but the decision has been made, and I don't see any reason for them to review this. So if you are a property developer, or if you are in facilitating or leasing arrangements, then you probably are on the suffering end. The same with hotels and restaurants, and of course the industry that you can see in the back of my screen, entertainment industry. We had a couple of weeks ago, I think this was a very telling episode. We had a drummer from Los Angeles and a music producer from Palma de Mallorca on the call, and what they were saying, I mean, they were extremely resilient, but nevertheless, entertainment industry as a whole is suffering. I went to a theater last night. It had maybe 20% capacity. I don't know how you want to make money with this kind of arrangement. So they are definitely going to suffer, and we will probably see a lot of them not making it.
Yeah, that was a learning from that episode from my side. Yeah, we had the situation that this industry long time had a very comfortable position selling CDs and DVDs. This was killed by some digital models, and then they compensated this by doing events, and now the events are disappeared. Yeah, so then we see a drummer playing in famous rock groups, living on teaching drumming,
Mm,
teaching
mm.
guitar to pupils. Yeah, that's an interesting development. Yeah.
That's an interesting development, and those are and this is, let's say, a form of entertainment that is relatively easily commercialized when we talk about pop and rock music. But if we talk about jazz, oh my God, or about let's say dance theaters, and they're really struggling. And I have learned for myself how important culture actually is, and you learn it you learn it only when suddenly it disappears, and you don't know what you got until it's gone, as Tom Kiefer once put it. Okay, so now we're moving into the new normal. I hate this word, new normal. It's not normal. It sucks. But they call it new normal. Let's call it a new situation. It's if that's normal. Oh my God, count me out. However, Sven, what elements will become the new normal?
Yeah, maybe picking up this strange term, new normal. Maybe we learned that normal is no longer normal, and maybe new dynamic. However,
Oh,
yeah, what I'm looking very much forward is that that the everyday masks will become really everyday's product also in Europe. I was always admiring the people in Asia because they were very polite when they have a flu or when they feel a bit sick. Then they, since decades, use the mask to protect not themselves but the others. And I think I always thought this is a very good idea, and I hope this will be everyday's normal situation now also in Europe and maybe in the US. Mm, if the right president becomes president, yeah. What do
okay.
you think?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, um, the the disappearing dress code. That's something. I mean, look at me wearing a polo shirt on a Friday afternoon. Well, that's rare. But what we see is the things have become normal that were unthinkable in the past. For example, we have a conference call and suddenly a child storms through the room playing cowboy, or wearing something that is maybe not appropriate in a business as a business attire. And we've seen, I mean, you have seen students in bathrobes. I've seen students where the boyfriend runs half naked through the picture, and this is all okay. I mean, the world hasn't doesn't stop. But we see, I think if I was a tailor, I would probably be concerned as well. Add this to my list of unfortunate industries. But I see the dress code. But there's another thing, and I think this is where I see a long-term phenomenon in companies. Why I believe this is we're not going back to the status quo ante, and this is. At one point, companies will realize, even once we have a treatment or a cure, or whatever, for COVID-19, they will realize that they saved a lot of money because they had reduced traveling.
Yes.
And they had reduced unnecessary long meetings somewhere, offsites, etc. And at some point, companies will realize that they are under some budget constraints or restraints because the economy tanked, and to re, to climb back out of the hole, you need to reduce costs. And as we all teach our students, if you want to save costs, you go for overhead costs. So cut down cut down training costs, kick out the consultants, and reduce travel costs. And now this new normal is a wonderful formula for exactly that. So we will. I make a prediction. We will see very few online trainings. We will see a lot of home office to continue. We will see customer meetings on Zoom and on Teams and whatever, and we see less personal contact. And this is because there will be a trinity of interest. There will be the trade unions who will say, "Oh yeah, the home office or mobile office work. This allows for more freedom for our employees." The CFOs will love it, and the sustainability departments will love it as well, because they say, yeah, finally we can improve our carbon footprint. So I think this is definitely going to be the new normal. The question is who's suffering.
That will be indeed, that's really a extremely relevant question. For me, I think, of course, as always, when we talk about new developments, when we talk about digitalization, we will always see some phenomena which nobody expected beforehand appearing. And now I'm very curious what will happen in this case. Yeah, one aspect, one suspect for me is again, the network stuff. Now, in the 1970s, 1980s, companies spent a lot of money to create occasions for informal communication. I know in the 70s they put some flowers into the offices and some coffee so that people meet. And when the copy machine came up, then it was a good place to meet some colleagues and to discuss some matters unplanned, spontaneously. And by that way, you learned a lot, for example, about who's working on which project, or who's failing on one project, or who's looking for some information which you might have. This is, by the way, the strong reason why the smokers in companies are so powerful, because they meet in the smoking corners, and by that way, and through all the hierarchies, through all the functional departments, and that's the way where communication is fluent. And this is definitely not taking place online. You cannot organize a spontaneous Zoom meeting. What we see is, of course, for example, chill out Friday chill outs, or the Wednesday party, which is offering some music, and everybody can jump into the session. But this is, of course, a different thing. You will not spontaneously talk about your trouble if 250
Yeah.
listeners are there. Now you will talk to someone who you know, because you know him from 100 cigarettes before, of course. And this does not take place. I'm not sure if this is really hurting companies, but I'm curious in to which extent it might reduce productivity, it might reduce creativity.
Okay, then maybe we want to move on to what do we as the UBE Academy, what are our suggestions for companies going forward? And my take is here, um, as always, as I said, yes, of course, the lack of personal contact, the lack of networks, the often artificial situations we find ourselves in, the virtual rooms. This is not all as good as the past, but it is good enough. And I think when we talk about new normal, it is not searching for excellence in this kind of process. It's searching for the next best thing to nothing. So if it's good enough, well, stick to
Yeah.
it, company, because you probably won't get any better at this stage, but just, move on and accept the fact that it's not as it used to be. My God. So that's the first lesson I have. And the other one is, um, think about virtual leadership. Leadership, one of the things, we have talked about a bit, but now it's virtual leadership and other rules apply. And especially in the combination of growing level of uncertainty. Remember, for the last 100 years or 120 years since industrialization kicked in, we we learned how to turn a uncertain situation into a risky situation by having models, processes, procedures to limit the volatility of a certain variable. So basically, have a mathematical approach to uncertainty, and this is uh, why we dealt so much with risk. Now we have to deal with uncertainty again, just like our ancestors had to do 500 years ago. And if you have to deal with uncertain situation that you cannot evaluate, with which you cannot plan, where your scenario planning comes to an end, well, then you need smart people, and smart people you need to lead differently. And now you have to lead them differently in a virtual environment. And this is probably the biggest challenge that we see that our customers are dealing with. Don't you agree, Sven?
That's the leadership part, definitely, and then there's the qualification part in it. We need more and more abilities, potentials to drive through situations which were uncertain, which were unforeseen. So what we need to prepare the companies for the unforeseeables, and that means qualification on every level. Trust, of course. You have to trust even if it's someone from a very low hierarchy. If this person has a good idea and this person knows this specific topic a lot better than you do, then let him run. Anyhow, he's in the home office, you're in the home office. You cannot stop him physically. And this is a new situation for many leaders, many high big shots in companies, high hierarchies. However, I think this can be even systematically introduced to companies by, for example, doing online trainings, which help the people to understand, to have a better understanding of digital development, economical developments, political developments, and so forth, and to understand what kind of technologies, what kind of process innovations they can implement to deal with the situation. And if the whole company is prepared, then it might increase tremendously the probability that the whole company will survive the whole thing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so this opens a big potential, I think, for seminars and trainings.
Yeah, good point. Um, 29 minutes we have already spoken. So there is one last thing we have to introduce. There is one reason um why we're here, and this is, and especially there's one reason why the picture that you see, or the image, the screen of Sven is slightly bigger than mine. It's not because he has more weight. No, that's definitely not the case. The other way around. It is because it is his birthday. And of course, the 20th episode, a reason to celebrate. But there's another reason, and this is his birthday. So I have prepared something. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Sven. Happy birthday to you.
Ah, it's great.
Yeah, thank you very much. This was the UBE Academy Friday Chill Out Lounge episode 20. Please stay tuned. Check us out. We have introduced a new podcast, which is available on Spotify, Apple Music, and Amazon. And please stay tuned. Next week, episode 21, another fascinating guest. And I promise I won't play guitar, I won't sing, and Sven is not having his birthday again. So stay tuned. Bye
No,
bye.
it's
Take
just,
care.
you're a great guitar player. Yeah. Stay healthy. Thank you very
Oh,
much. And see you
singer.
soon again. Yeah.
Bye bye.
Bye.